Crash Course on Gender Studies, Gender and Power, explore the ways in which gender intersects with power and privilege, including issues of race, class, and sexuality. Certainly. Let's dive into a crash course on gender studies, gender and power. Gender and power are deeply intertwined concepts that shape the experiences of individuals and groups in society. Power can take many forms, including social, economic, and political power, and it is often unequally distributed based on factors such as gender, race, class, and sexuality. To understand the ways in which gender intersects with power and privilege, let's explore some examples and stories that highlight these concepts. One example of how gender intersects with power is the wage gap between men and women. In many countries, women earn less than men for doing the same job, despite having the same level of education and experience. This wage gap is a result of systemic discrimination against women and reflects the unequal distribution of power between genders in the workplace. Another example of how gender intersects with power is the underrepresentation of women in political leadership positions. Despite making up approximately half of the global population, women hold only a small percentage of political leadership positions worldwide. This lack of representation is a result of gender-based discrimination and reflects the unequal distribution of political power between genders. The intersectionality of gender, race, and class can also be seen in the experiences of women of color. Women of color often face multiple forms of discrimination and oppression, as they are marginalized based on both their gender and their race or ethnicity. For example, Black women in the United States face higher rates of maternal mortality than white women, which reflects the intersectional impacts of systemic racism and gender-based discrimination. Now that we have explored some examples of how gender intersects with power and privilege, let's dive into the top 12 ways in which gender and power intersect. The gender wage gap. The gender wage gap refers to the difference in pay between men and women, even when they have the same qualifications and job responsibilities. Occupational segregation. Occupational segregation refers to the pattern of men and women being concentrated in different occupations, often with women being concentrated in lower-paying fields. Gender-based discrimination in hiring. Gender-based discrimination in hiring refers to the practice of discriminating against job candidates based on their gender. Sexual harassment and assault. Sexual harassment and assault are forms of gender-based violence that disproportionately affect women and are often used as tools of power and control. Lack of women in leadership positions. The underrepresentation of women in leadership positions reflects the unequal distribution of power between genders and can have significant impacts on decision-making and policy outcomes. Gender-based violence. Gender-based violence includes a range of harmful behaviors, such as intimate partner violence and human trafficking, that disproportionately affect women and are often used as tools of power and control. Lack of access to healthcare. Women often face barriers to accessing healthcare, such as limited availability of reproductive healthcare and gender-based discrimination from healthcare providers. The gender division of household labor. The gender division of household labor refers to the unequal distribution of household responsibilities based on gender, with women typically shouldering a greater burden of caregiving and household chores. Motherhood penalty and fatherhood bonus. The motherhood penalty refers to the negative impacts that motherhood can have on women's careers and earnings, while the fatherhood bonus refers to the positive impacts that fatherhood can have on men's careers and earnings. Gender-based discrimination in education. Gender-based discrimination in education can take many forms, including limiting girls' access to education and perpetuating gender stereotypes in the classroom. Transphobia and discrimination against gender nonconforming individuals. Transphobia and discrimination against gender nonconforming individuals reflect the unequal distribution of power between genders and can have significant impacts on the health and well-being of these individuals. Intersectionality of gender, race, and class. The intersectionality of gender, race, and class is a crucial concept in understanding how power and privilege operate in society. Individuals who belong to marginalized groups based on multiple factors, such as being a woman of color or a low-income transgender person, often face compounded discrimination and oppression. These are just some of the ways in which gender intersects with power and privilege, and there are many more examples and complexities to explore within the field of gender studies. In summary, gender studies is a field that explores the ways in which gender intersects with various forms of power and privilege, including social, economic, and political power. Through examining the experiences of individuals and groups in society, gender studies seeks to understand and challenge systems of oppression and inequality. Now, let's turn our attention to a poem on this topic. Gender and power, intertwined and complex. Systems of privilege, we must inspect. Unequal distribution, we must address. To create a world that is truly fair and just. The wage gap persists, despite equal skill. And occupational segregation lingers still. Discrimination in hiring, a biased drill. These are ways gender-based power can kill. Sexual harassment and assault, tools of control. Used to maintain power and uphold the status quo. And lack of women in leadership roles. Means decision-making can be biased and unwhole. Transphobia and discrimination against the non-conforming. Shows the unequal distribution of power in the forming. And the intersectionality of gender, race, and class. Means marginalized groups face compounded attacks. Gender and power, an ongoing fight. To dismantle systems that are not quite right. We must continue to challenge and ignite. A world where all individuals can shine bright. Start planning your next global adventure with ease and convenience with our Booking.com referral link, https://www.booking.com/index.html. 8=7989335 is a great choice to plan your next trip. You can find and book flights, hotels, cars, and local attractions all in one place, and our price match guarantee ensures you're getting the best deal. Thank you for kind support our InHub Metaverse channel, and please watch more interesting videos here.